All right, welcome back to Campus to Canton Senior Bowl edition. It's day 2 of Barnabas and Friends.
Barney and Friends.
Barney and Friends, that's right. We're pretty tired. I'm gonna be straight with you guys. We are tired, but we're gonna talk about a lot more people today. I didn't post nearly as much clips today, but I am uploading them to my laptop right now. I have 73 clips from today's practices, and I'm gonna start off by talking about running backs because I was being really nice yesterday. Evan Hall and Chase Brown were atrocious in pass pro. I'm just going to say it as it is. But they did a lot better today, so I feel okay talking about how bad they did yesterday. Cameron Peoples looked pretty good today, too. I mean, he seems to just be a guy. He's really not differentiating himself. Like, he's not standing out, but he's doing okay in drills, so you can't be like he looks terrible either.
I will say Cam Peoples. So he's definitely the third guy off the bench, right? Like he's the third running back taking reps, and
on the national team of a total of 4 running backs.
Right, and I just think I look at a guy like Cam Peoples, and he clearly had some production in college, but at the end of the day, I don't know what to do with him. He has a very thin lower body. Like most of his weight is in his midsection and above.
You know, Barnabas is a big feet guy. Now you know it's a big leg guy. I'm
just
saying.
He's just thin ankles. I don't know. He's not a particularly good receiver.
Yeah, he looked. He like fought the ball. He was not a soft hands catcher. Like it would look like a really awkward motion for him to catch the ball. Definitely like to extend his arms out either. He kept that ball close.
Yeah, so I just think that the coaches, as well as evaluators, just don't know what to do with him. I think he's had success in his specific scheme, but is he scheme versatile? Probably not. Is some running backs coach going to fall in love with him? Maybe, but I don't know that he has any of those exact traits that you're like, oh, super excited about.
I do want to get on to so Roschon Johnson, for everyone not tracking, Roschon Johnson broke a toe?
I thought it was a finger. But
finger. Who broke a toe? Someone broke a toe.
I don't remember.
At the other bowl. Yeah. Someone broke a toe at the other bowl. Roschon broke a finger. He's not practicing anymore. They brought in Sir Roderick Thompson from Texas Tech. And he looked pretty good too. He didn't look.
He was a little hesitant at times.
I mean, same as Cam Peoples, where like you didn't feel like he did bad, but you didn't sit there and say, "Wow, he's really killing it out there today."
In all fairness, it's really hard to stand out as a running back at these practices because everyone's just kind of soft hitting and you're letting them through. So it's really hard to say, "Oh, this running back's doing great," because their entire position is based on hitting people.
They go through like 8 set of drills. And probably about 3 of them you can really evaluate. Because some of them are just like warm-up drills or agility drills. And like no one's really standing out in agility drills. They're just going through the motion. I do want to say, though, I did post part 1 and part 2 of running backs versus linebackers for passing drills, which you could evaluate. It's 5 minutes long total. I think I broke it up in two 2-minute sections. So Deion Henley, linebacker from Washington State, 6'1". We'll round up. He's 6'1", 230. I thought he looked dominant there. He was a really good pass coverage linebacker. Got any more about that?
It's not even just pass coverage. He showed a lot of leadership. Like I said yesterday, the coaches were having him call the huddles. And it was very clear he was calling shifts as soon as the huddles were breaking during team segments. He was hitting a little bit harder than everyone else during the individual sections without causing fights like some of the other players were today. So like there was a clear leadership. A lot of he's a little bit slower and a little bit shorter than you'd like for a linebacker, but he's doing things that evaluators are going to love in terms of intangibles this Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he looked great. I did see a lot of. I'm really just going down the national roster list right now. I saw a lot of hype for Jayden Reed today on Twitter. I just want to say Jayden Reed is beating everybody with speed. He's not playing the physical game. He's just got a fast release. I don't think he's looking dynamic in route running either. He's just a speed guy, and that's
what I was winning. Reed?
Yeah, Jayden Reed from Michigan State.
I mean, Jayden Reed has looked good. I will say that. I think the corners on the national team are a little bit slower than maybe the ones on the American team, and so I think there is a little bit of weakness and strength going on there. Jayden Reed doesn't stack as well as you'd like from a guy that only runs verticals essentially. But he does run those verticals very quickly. And so I mentioned during the preseason, Jayden Reed's acceleration is effortless. You can't tell when he's accelerating. And so that has thrown some defensive backs off for sure this week.
As far as field stretchers go, if you want to just rank someone by a singular role, if someone had Jaden Reed as a top 3 field stretcher in this class, I think I'd be pretty likely to agree there.
Sure.
Yeah. Going down the list, I want to talk. Well, I think I want Barnabas to talk about DeMarvion Overshown, linebacker from Texas. I think he got some hype. People were really talking about him, but you haven't been too impressed.
I have not been. Well, I think we haven't seen him that much. I frankly, he doesn't jump in line like some of the other players do. Like the players like Henley will cut in line to play against guys he wants to get reps against during drills and such. And you don't see that with DeMarvion Overshown. He takes as few reps as possible. And I wasn't impressed with like just the lack. There's like a little bit of lack of effort in drills and stuff, and he just doesn't pop off the tape when he in team segments. So I don't know if it's just kind of a saving himself situation, in which case, good for him. That means he has some sort of guarantee somewhere probably. And his tape is good. He looked actually a little thicker on tape, I think, than he's shown to this week's thus far. So hopefully that's not to his detriment, but he's looked okay at times, but I'd wish he was, flying around like Dion Henley has been this season.
Yeah.
Today.
Speaking of people not showing up, Puka Nacua was a no-show today. I don't know why that is. I searched Twitter one time in the morning to see why he wasn't at practice today. Just really kind of been off my phone, a little disconnected. But Puka Nacua was not there today, and it was noticed. Michael Wilson, again, another good day 2 in the books. I think I'm going to go ahead and say this statement. I think you can call that consistent play now. I think I'm going to be expecting this from him the rest of the week. He's a clear riser. We do see people ball out at the Senior Bowl, get like second day draft capital now. I'm talking about like round 2, round 3. I'm going to have to adjust my rankings, that's for sure, but I don't want to jump ahead of myself here. But I do think if Michael Wilson continues his play that he's doing right now, he's gonna end up a day 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, so we got to talk. We had the privilege of talking to him this morning.
One of the best interviews too, man. Okay. I used to think it was ridiculous for people to adjust their rankings for like 1 or 2 days of Senior Bowl practice and just ignore like an entire 4 or 5 year career of work, But now that I talk to this kid, I'm like, I can't root against him.
Yeah,
I can't lower ranking down. Like I gotta bump those numbers up.
Yeah, he really holds up that Stanford level of excellence, if you will, academically, where he definitely has that intelligence factor that is pretty impressive. He was just explaining, and also he talked about some of the teams he talked to this week. And I think with that list, I think he mentioned Seattle and Washington.
Seahawks, be interested. Yeah.
And so those are teams that, are looking for, contributors and maybe not necessarily starters right away, but those are teams that could draft somewhere like early day 3, maybe late day 2 if they're really motivated. And so,
for all of you football fans out there, he even stated he knows that fans don't want to stay up to watch the Pac-12 at night. So he recognizes the struggle of us trying to stay up to watch those games.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see who's next on the list.
We got Keon White's coming up because I know Justice asked about how is Keon White going today. He looks good.
He's definitely only an outside rusher. I thought he might be big enough to maybe kick inside sometimes, but he's not. He had some interior rush opportunities today, and both those times he tried to swing outside on the guard, and it's just like, oh, you're not gonna be able to do that at the next level. So, I don't take too much stock in these one-on-ones, obviously, because it's not how they impact the team on a more macro level. But
right.
I think he's purely an edge guy, and I think that he has some tools. He doesn't like pop off the field, but he makes plays, and he's always around the ball. So not an unsuccessful day for him by any means, but maybe he can get some highlight reel plays out there.
I do want to talk about 2 bounce backs from day 1. I already talked about Chase coming back, Evan Hall too, but I want to talk about Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell seemed to struggle in one-on-ones, just like Jaden Reed. He's kind of just a vertical guy, but a little less speed and quickness to him. He looked good today, and he showed off a lot more route running chops too. I mean, he had a highlight play, and the coaches were like, it's okay to cheer for your teammates. And then he pretty much capped it off with another highlight play coming up next. and then he just killed it. He did have, I want to say, 2 drops this practice too. He's been kind of inconsistent hands the Senior Bowl week so far, but definitely a better day than yesterday, because I think yesterday he would have been a clear stock down loser, however you want to phrase it. But today I thought he looked good.
I will say the national team coaching staff has made a big emphasis on not focusing on bad plays, right? That you hear it constantly from the coaches every time where, guys clapping his hands saying like, oh crap, like I messed up. But then the coaches are like, okay, here's how to fix it. Now fix it this next rep.
Yeah. And then
they're moving on quickly.
One of the interviews, it might've been Isaiah Land, who said, it's okay to make mistakes, but not to make the same mistake consistently. And I was kind of like, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, that was a well-spoken guy. We'll talk about him a little bit more when we talk about the American team. But yeah, he had a good day.
Might get that tatted on my back, honestly.
Oh wow.
Yeah, one mistake. Well, it's not consistent. Anyway, another guy, Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer's real quiet day one. You can't really say he played bad. We just didn't see him one-on-ones. He had like 1 rep in that. Today, I failed on getting the clip of him in one-on-ones, but he looked good today too. I'm sure other people are going to get it. It'll be on Twitter, but Trey Palmer looked good today in one-on-ones. Quiet in the 7v7 and the 11v11 category, but he did do well.
I don't know if it's a positive or negative, but Trey Palmer and Mekhi Blackman were really going at it during not just against each other, but they were just going at it against everyone during one-on-ones and
yeah.
Such. So
Trey Palmer sought out contact himself too.
Yeah, and so I don't know if evaluators will count that as a positive or negative. I think there's something to be said about aggressive mentality. It's hard to reel that. It's hard to teach someone to be aggressive. It's much easier to try to reel that back a little bit. So we'll see how that affects his draft stock.
I want to talk about Trey Tucker next, Cincinnati wide receiver. Again, shifty little guy, consistent. Another good day in the books. Just mark it down. Nothing really more to a note, but just keeping it up.
Yeah, and he was a great interview this morning as well. We got a chance to talk to Trey Tucker briefly.
Yeah.
And he seemed I don't know what I expected, but he was way more well spoken than I expected. And he seemed to have a really solid head on his shoulders, and he really knew what kind of role he was looking for out there. And so he was very goal oriented. I was very impressed.
I do want to talk about maybe what might have been the defensive MVP today for the national team. That's going to be Caillou Blue Kelly from Stanford. Had a pick in 11-on-11s against his teammate Elijah Higgins, pick 6.
It wasn't just a pick. It was a tipped ball and he just takes the ball out of Elijah Higgins' hands, essentially.
Yeah, it was like a strip. Yeah, it was stripped. I mean, Elijah Higgins is having a brutal week. I'll just say that about Higgins. But Caillou Blue, physical player, always playing press, and he looked good. I think teams are going to really like that aggression. I think Caillou is making himself some money this week.
Yeah, and I'll say, so another person that's making himself some money is Evan Hull. We talked about Dion Headley's leadership. On the offensive side, that is Evan Hull. Whether it's punt team, where he's the first guy out there calling the snap on punt team, or whether it's just the guy that's taking the first rep no matter what on every drill. And so I was very impressed. I think the coaches are clearly leaning on him as a leader. You can just tell from the way he calls his cadences, compared to the other running backs. Some of the other running backs, like Sir Roderick Thompson, obviously it was his first day, but he was very tentative about the way he called those punt cadences. Evan Hull, no problem. He was just yelling those things out and very confident. I'm not a special teams person by any means, but if I needed someone to call punt team, I'd call Evan Hull. He was doing much better in pass pro as well, which kind of translates over a little bit to as a personal protector in punt team as well. So I was a little bit impressed, and he had a little bit of a couple of returns as well.
Yeah, let's talk about the Iowa secondary guys. They're definitely a focus for us to look at. Yesterday, I know Dane Brugler was a fan of Riley Moss yesterday, but I think Riley Moss has been pretty consistent as well. He's consistently winning his reps. You have anything to say about the Iowa guys?
Yeah, so Michael Wilson beat Riley Moss on a rep today. That was like a touchdown. And it was a good stack by Wilson.
Yeah,
for sure.
He stacked him.
But something interesting is that Riley Moss, his closing speed is kind of ridiculous.
He kept up. I mean, it was clear Mike Wilson won the initial rep, but it was like he still it was really good ball tracking, a well placed ball over the shoulder, but like Moss was not more than like one step behind. It wasn't a clear like he just got blown up.
Yeah, and so it was really impressive. I mean, Riley Moss looks like a track kid. And so, Wilson probably had 3, maybe 4 yards of separation when the ball was thrown. And it almost made it a contested catch. Like it was kind of silly in that way. And so there was that, Kayvon Merriweather didn't look quite as flashy today. There are a lot of undersized safeties on the national team. And so, and then they have JL Skinner on the other hand, who we'll talk about in a second. But Merriweather, is a little bit small, but he kind of you can tell he knows where he's supposed to be.
These safeties they have do these 1v1s. I just kind of feel bad because it's nice that they can do them if they can, but I feel bad for the ones that are not really great coverage corners.
Yeah, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. Payne Durham is having a field day against these safeties. I mean, he's either crushing them in a block or just like bodying them up on catches. And it's just not fair. Payne Durham is a big boy. And,
yeah.
And we had a chance to speak with him. The only person that said a country song for his hype up song. A great guy. And so, I'm really rooting for Payne Durham. I've been pounding the table for just Big Ten tight ends in general for a long time now. So, Big Ten tight ends come in ready to block, and Payne Durham is no exception. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about JL Skinner though. 6'4", 211 for a safety. That's
you never
tall.
Lose him on the field. You never lose him. He's just head and shoulders taller than everybody out there.
Yeah. He had a rough day today.
Yeah. It wasn't clean. Skinner, it wasn't like footwork thing. He was just getting beat on reps. There wasn't like any specific thing that was a problem. It wasn't even necessarily mechanically. It was just he was getting beat, and I'm not really sure how to describe it. The coaches were kind of saying, just keep your head up and keep going at it, because he wasn't making egregious mistakes. He was just a little bit late or a little bit, too passive or just a little bit off. And I don't know what it was. And maybe he bounces back tomorrow. And I sure hope he does, because I think he can make himself a lot of money. And he made himself a lot of money just by weighing in at his dimensions, he was listed at. So he's a big guy. You can, it's not hard to spot him. He's a skinny guy. And, the coaches are playing him in single high even, which I don't know how much we saw at Boise State. But, for a guy that size, to be able to be trusted by these coaches to say, hey, you're gonna play some single high out there. I think that's a big ask, essentially, because you look at his dimensions and you look at guys in the NFL like I'm a Cowboys fan, obviously, so Nashawn Wright or what's his name, Jaron Kearse, right? You expect those types of guys where they're just kind of matchup tools, but I think that Skinner has his future as just a regular old safety in the back as well.
I'm not an offensive line guy. Did you get any good looks at the offensive line? Because I know Blake Freeland's really doing well. I know Jared Patterson's doing well, but those two guys are expected to be doing well.
Yeah. So you talked about Olusegun Oluwatumi in our preview show.
Yes, Michigan center.
Yeah, he has been struggling a little bit, but he's holding his own. He's not losing reps necessarily, but he's not dominantly winning them, right? Blake Freeland was getting a little bit of praise. I tweeted about it from the coaches, because he really was something that the coaches were focusing on was inside leverage for these offensive tackles and widening the arc out. And Blake Freeland was doing a great job of that. Jalen Duncan was having a little bit more trouble with that, because he kind of was digging too far on the inside to try to get them to the outside shoulder instead of just guiding their momentum out that way. And so, excuse me. So Freeland was getting a lot of praise for that. Jared Patterson, on the other hand, he's been holding well. He kind of just anchors down. He doesn't really guide that anywhere. And so that was kind of interesting. Cody Mock, not as great of a day as I think some would have hoped. He had a pretty good day yesterday.
Yeah, they moved him to center for a little bit too, which I thought was interesting, because I don't think he played center.
Not to my understanding. At 6'4", it's a little tall for.
So that was interesting. Future Patriot Cody Mock. You know how we do with the obscure schools.
I mean, we said that about Luke Fortner too. Luke Fortner, famous for his beach towel on his belt when he played at Kentucky. Jake Andrews, Troy center, had a little bit of success getting to the second level. I was really impressed with.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. Some run plays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know about his pass play. He seems short. I don't know what he's listed at. But he seemed a little bit short, and that
6'2.5".
6'2",
6'2.5".
He seems a little bit short, which for a center doesn't matter as quite as much, but he was out there and he was getting to the second level. A lot of effort plays, but I am not sure how his physical gifts match up really.
I do want to say this though, Davis Allen, the Clemson tight end, who I don't think any of us were really counting on to be a weapon out there. He's been getting some really positive reps in there. I mean, he's been doing better than I expected. I mean, Payne Durham is, I think, for both of us, the tight end one on the national team. But Allen Davis has been productive himself. I actually have been surprised.
Davis Allen obviously is a better receiving threat, I think, than Payne Durham. I think we both have Payne Durham higher because we think coaches are more likely to be drawn to a tight end that can dominantly block right away. Davis Allen, however, has done a decent job at blocking, not terrible at all. I mean, some positive reps there as well, and very clearly is a zone beater tight end. And it shows in the team segment where he gets the ball at like 4 or 5 times during every team segment. So yeah, really impressed with him. I will say that the interior defensive line today for the national team might have been the stars. Keanu Benton and Tommy Adebawore, or both had phenomenal days. There was an individual next to me that was, commenting on Tommy Adebawore, and I just turned to him and said, "Go watch that Nebraska game."
I can't.
He almost single-handedly took that game over.
I can't believe you pronounced that right first try like that. That name gives me anxiety looking at it.
Keanu Benton, I think I saw somewhere on Twitter yesterday that's someone said the Steelers had some interest in him. Dane Brugler said he looked like a man on a mission, and he was just blowing up every single play on the national team.
Dane Brugler needs to go on a mission to find some sunscreen.
That's true. Someone I look up to very much, but
he's more red than our shirts right now. I'll tell you that.
But yeah, and so Keanu Benton, he was getting under offensive linemen. He was just pushing them back at times. He was unblockable in one-on-ones. Just unblockable. Almost every time, the coaches had to pull aside whoever was trying to block him to explain what they did wrong, because he was just exposing every weakness. And it was, like I said, it wasn't by one method. He was just forklifting guys. He was spinning around them. No one could stop him today.
Yeah, I do want to go over to special teams if we're done with the rest of the national.
That's you. One of us played fullback and one of us was a kicker, and I think most of you would guess wrong. But anyway.
So special teams, we got Chad Ryland, kicker out of Maryland. He's missing from 55 out and from like 50 out pretty regularly, which is kind of concerning. Not by a lot. He's not whiffing them. He's definitely not Brett Maher out there. But
hey, Brett Maher is actually very accurate from 50 plus.
But I do want to talk to him a little bit. He's shorter, which I was kind of a little concerned with his flexibility. That's a big thing for kickers too. He doesn't bring his leg back that far. Most of his power comes from his hips and his thigh, but not really snapping of his leg downward, which, he's got fine power in his leg. I'm just a little concerned about that. I am very impressed though with the punter, who I think it's pretty funny because I've been watching the punter introduce himself to coaches. I mean, they're just special teams guys just goof off on the sidelines. We got like 3 drills we can go through. Like that's it, and then, but watching the punter go out to the coaches and just introducing himself to coaches. I actually think that's hilarious and I love it. That's Bryce Behringer from Michigan State. His punts are good. Tomorrow I'm actually going to time the hang time because that's what's important for kickers and for punters is hang time on balls, not distance, because all of us can blast that ball super far, but it matters about hang time, which gives your team obviously enough time to get down to the field.
Right. Like we remember, Matt Areza, who obviously we don't endorse in terms of his personal conduct. But, many expected Matt Areza to be the first punter drafted. That was a weird draft last year where 3 punters got drafted. Many expected him to be the first one to go because of his 70-yard punts, but it was actually the Penn State punter. His name is escaping me right now, who was drafted first because he had a much better hang time, even though his distance wasn't quite as far. So obviously NFL teams know what they're looking for, which is the hang time. So that'll be interesting.
All about hang time. That's what they care about.
Before we go on to the American roster, just want to remind everyone who's watching, if you have any people you're curious about or want to hear more about, just drop them in the chat and we'll try to, answer as best as we can from what we noticed. This isn't just a one-sided, conversation. We'd love to hear from you guys as well. Or if any of you are here as well, we'd love to hear your thoughts or or meet up with you at some point as well.
Absolutely. Let's go over to the American side. Our first day watching this roster, and I'm going to say, just judging a book by a cover, I was most excited about the American roster. They had a lot of the pass catchers I wanted to watch, a lot of the upside guys, in my opinion. These corners were
working.
Yeah, and I thought they did pretty well. We're gonna do the same thing. We're just go from top to bottom, start down. Eric Gray looked to me to be the lead rusher out of this group. Would you agree?
That's probably true.
I'm lying. Sorry. Tyjae Spears.
Tyjae Spears looked good. Although I will say, Eric Gray was returning punts at some point, which was interesting. I'm not sure that he ever did that at Oklahoma. Not something I expected from him, but very interesting that the coaches wanted him out there. It was like a very diverse group for the American side. I tweeted it out. There was a couple corners, a couple receivers, a couple running backs. It was just a very odd group. But Eric Gray was one of them, and that's not something I expected.
Yeah, it was interesting to see. But also Eric Gray as a runner, though, he looked great. We'll talk about Tyjae Spears a little bit down the line. I'm trying to go on order on my list here. We do want to say Marte Mapu, the Sacramento State. He is playing linebacker, but he's actually played what this season?
He was mostly a safety, to my understanding. Not that I have access to any Sacramento State tape. So if anyone has that, please send that my way. But Marte Mapu was listed. The Senior Bowl didn't even announce his position when they first announced that he had been accepted their offer, the invite. But he's listed as a linebacker this week, and that's interesting. He's tall, like he's kind of like Skinner. He stands head and shoulders above everyone. And it's kind of like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, it's Mapu, because you can see the big green helmet. There aren't that many green helmets out here this week, so yeah.
Let's go on to Jay Ward. Jay Ward, LSU safety. Now, I'm going to talk about him first because Barnabas going to have a lot more to say. But Jay Ward might be CB1 on this team here. He looked great. He's listed as a safety too, and I brought this up to Barnabas. I'm just like, a safety that can do coverage like that, that's valuable. And that's when Barnabas educated me, letting me know that he played corner for 3 years first. So LSU has a prospect here that can play a safety position, but also cover as if he's just a top corner. And I just thought he was pretty amazing. We missed out on an interview today, but we're going to get him tomorrow. I'm tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, clearly everyone else thought he had a great practice as well, because there was a crowd around Jay Ward today after practice. He played corner for the first 2 years of his career at LSU, and it shows, because I actually think he's way more comfortable at corner than safety. The coaches, I think, are playing him at safety because they just don't have that many safeties on the roster, and especially that they moved him up to the linebacker. But Jay Ward, he in one-on-ones, he's just on the hip. Like he may not necessarily stop the ball every time, which will come with time and development and teaching hand technique and such. But he is always in position. He's right there on that hip, and I've been very impressed. And he's a longer guy. He looks like he has long arms for a 6'1" guy. I don't know what his wingspan officially measured in at. But he looks long, like corner long, right? People say the corners, you don't care about the height, you care about the wingspan. And I think he has the arm length because you want 30-inch plus arm corners.
They have his weight down as 236.
That seems high.
Yeah, it does, because he looks skinny out there to me.
236, really?
Yeah, am I reading that right? Yes,
wow.
I am. Yeah, I am reading that right.
That seems high.
Yeah.
I think that might be a typo, because that seems high to me.
If that's actually his measurables combined with what we've seen out there, and I'm sure he's going to test fine at the combine compared to what we've seen out there. He looked pretty amazing. I do want to talk about two wide receivers here coming up. I want to talk about Dontavion Wicks and Xavier Hutchinson, both guys that are looking much quicker on the field than they definitely looked on tape for me. Xavier Hutchinson, to me, he's listed at 6'3", 210. He obviously got measured in here at 6'1.7", 200 pounds. I like that height a lot more, and he moves really well too. I posted a clip today with him against one of the South Alabama corners. They're both moving pretty well. I don't know if I want to call them like MVPs or anything like that, but I thought they both played extremely well here. Tank Dell, Nathaniel Dell, haven't seen him out there for the interviews. It's a pun intended, but he's been doing pretty good. He's definitely the very clear, small, quick twitch slot in that group, and no one really compares to his twitch ability.
Jay Ward is 186, by the way. 6'1", 186, but 32-inch arms. So like we said, he's corner
Okay.
tall. He's corner tall.
Who was this supposed to be? 6'3" anyway.
Yeah, that seems like a typo. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm glad you checked that.
Yeah.
That looks wild.
Okay.
All right. We didn't talk about quarterbacks from the last group. They've been pretty unimpressive.
Yeah, I mean, if we're totally frank, I think they're holding back practices a little bit just because it's just not accurate. The balls just aren't going where they're supposed to. Dane Brugler mentioned that he doesn't even evaluate quarterbacks for the first day, but I don't know that day 2 was much better, to be honest.
I do want to say this: Malik Cunningham did join the national team for the first time today. He looks really small. I couldn't believe how small he was. But anyway, they gave him one design run. Nothing really came from it. It was only one play. No big deal. But talking about Clayton Tune here, playing really loose and definitely throwing some picks and just throwing to nobody a few times as well.
Yeah, you'd expect a little more chemistry with him and Tank Dell, considering how many yards they put up together. But not necessarily the case. I think that he's just trying to. I think actually he was playing a little tight, to be honest with you. I don't know that it was loose. And so I think once he gets comfortable, I think it'll be better. I think that part of it is a comfort issue. But if we had to pick a most accurate quarterback, I guess it's Tyson Bagent. But and I really wish the guy had a little bit more fashion sense.
He's got no swag.
Yeah.
Tyson Bagent, please bring us some swag.
Yeah. Some a little quarterback jacket. Don't wear a big baggy shirt underneath. That's just a couple tips real quick.
Oh, and Duggan is throwing out there. We didn't think he was going to be throwing.
Yeah, and Duggan looked okay. He looked poised. I don't know how accurate. He wasn't terribly accurate, but he was making correct reads and he was out there. It's the vertical variation of his throws that's the trouble with Duggan. So, if there's one place where he can maybe get away with that might be here. But there's definitely a step up, and these corners are trying to step up, and so it's really hard for the receivers to even get anywhere. Rashee Rice, I know I'm jumping ahead probably a little bit, but
that's all right.
Rashee Rice was getting manhandled by some of these defensive backs. Jamie Robinson,
who I actually was about to bring up.
Yeah.
Jamie Robinson, a little less. I don't know what to call it. He likes to play physical, but I keep talking about Caillou Blue for being physical. This is more like being physical in a fouling sense, not like a
Rashee Rice's shoulder pad is out of his jersey every rep he plays, every rep.
Every rep, yeah. So I love the mindset. I'm not loving the execution. Did you have anything to say about the Alabama safety?
DeMarco Helms?
Yes.
Honestly, I didn't see him out there too often.
Yeah, I don't remember really too much either.
Yeah, which I guess, safety tape is boring. I think it's supposed to be boring, but, I don't remember any significant plays that he had. We can move on to someone like...
I'm going to mess this up only because I want Austin to text me to correct me on this, but Cervache.
Yeah, I got nothing.
Dose and Kambana, the Pitt linebacker who wears bright yellow, which makes him very easy to evaluate and see, which I love that. I thought he would play pretty well today.
I will say, so we, during the interview process this morning, it was very clear that he was a very outgoing person, which I think is always good to see in football players. Not afraid to, just go up to people and start talking to them. He just saw someone holding a mic and he just started talking to them. I was impressed with that. But yeah, he was always around the ball, he kind of, I don't know, his tape, he seems kind of thin. And so it kind of seemed like almost like a hybrid linebacker safety type.
He is on the lighter side. I believe he's at 218 on the sheet here.
Yeah, but he flies around and he was at the ball a lot. Him and Dorian Williams, who I guess we'll talk about in a bit, but Dennis was definitely a bright point today.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about Andre Yoshivas from Princeton, who I was excited to watch because he's got some very high-end verified athletics. He's got great size, constant production. He's just a mystery box because he comes from the Ivy Leagues. He's, I believe he's the third player from Princeton to ever get invited to the Senior Bowl. But his releases were slow. He is a very slow release off the line. I think he gets jammed. Some of these balls were poorly thrown, but there wasn't really too much effort either, and from him to get these poorly thrown balls. It just seemed like he was like, all right, well, it's out of my reach. I'm not even going to try to go for it. So I was a little bit frustrated with the effort, but also his release was he just has a slow release, and so I'm a little upset about it.
So I don't know if to technically classify it as a slow release. He just struggles to get out of his release, I think, is part of it.
Okay.
Mechanically, like he's getting to his 3 steps quickly.
He's not bursty.
Yeah.
He can't burst out.
Yeah,
of
he's
it.
he's not already at 20 miles an hour by the time he gets out of that break. He's very much building up to it. It's just, for me, if a guy's that big, you're not really asked to run routes. You're not supposed to ask to really get separation with your routes necessarily, but you are expected to come down with a ball. Just as, whether it's a catch point or whatever, like body control, ball skills, whatever it is. At that size, you're expected to come down with the ball, regardless of how fast you are. And he just doesn't. And that was just puzzling for me. I don't know.
I'm going to say this. We have a difference of opinion on the ball skills we've seen today on Andre Yoshivas.
Yeah, well, okay, here's the thing. He can catch the ball, sure. When he puts an effort, there was one play at the sideline where he twisted his body to catch the ball. It's just that he got 0 feet down. It wasn't even one like college rules. He just didn't bother getting either of his feet down. And I don't know if I would call that as ball skills if you can't get either of your feet down.
I can't argue that play. That's facts.
Yeah.
Let's go on to Ali Gay, who we also got to interview today this morning. I thought he looked good.
He looked thicker than he does on tape. I don't know if he personally put on weight. He was an interesting interview as well. We got to speak with him. He seemed like a very fun-loving guy. But he looked thicker, and I think that showed in his strength for sure. I don't know if the burst was still there. I love the fact that whenever the run goes the opposite direction, he scrapes down. He's not like running straight down. He keeps his fundamentals in check every play, even if the ball is going the opposite direction from him. And he's just scraping all the way down there. And I appreciate that as a football purist. And so I was impressed with Ali Gay today.
Yeah. Did you talk about Rashee Rice a little bit?
I talked about Rashee Rice a little bit. He doesn't look quite as big as we expected him to, I think.
Not at all. He looks very average size.
And maybe
not in a bad way, average NFL size.
Yeah. He's acceptable size. Maybe just average speed as well. I think he struggled to get like truly open, which I think follows what he has on tape. He's not truly getting open with, whether it's speed or route running separation.
Right.
And so because all these DBs were just kind of mauling him at the line and 5 yards. Technically, although
this DB group again though was definitely a better group overall and definitely had as a group more aggression, where the other group is like just Caillou has aggression. There's quite a few guys with aggression here.
Yeah, and so he was definitely struggling because everyone was trying to mess with him at the catch point. And so in the NFL everyone is game planned for, and so maybe this is something where his skill set maybe doesn't fully translate, but I'm hoping that he finds a way to get those down, because obviously with that kind of production in college, you'd like to see more from the guy.
Jonathan Mingo was a terrible interview, but a better wide receiver today. I'll tell you that. Jonathan Mingo was fun today to watch in football. He actually really was. I know that he disappears sometimes in the year with I don't know, I'm gonna call it drops.
Yeah, I just lack of production overall.
And he definitely had one drop today. But I was actually pretty surprised how well a man at 226 pounds moves. I mean, he was – I think he stacked really well at one time too.
Yeah, so that was the scouting report coming in, right? During the preview show I mentioned that Mingo's biggest strength is he just stacks defensive backs on his back because he's so large. And so – I think that's a good way to put it, and so he stuck to that scouting report and he did really well today. He's not necessarily the fastest guy, but he'll just stick a shoulder in there. And once he has a shoulder over that corner, it's stacked and the corner has no shot. And so all the quarterback has to do is float it in over him and he'll get there. And so he had a really good day. I mean, physical corner group. And so he matched that physicality and it showed.
Let's talk about Tyjae Spears now. Tyjae Spears is the RB1 on this group for sure. Doesn't show a lot of power, but as far as guys that are looking like agile and shifty, be able to make guys miss, it has been Tyjae Spears. And once again, it's hard to really truly evaluate running backs because there's not a lot of contact. People aren't looking to get hurt in this environment at all. So, but go ahead and look for Tyjae Spears highlights all over your Twitter. It's going to be him.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best receiver of the bunch by far, I think.
Yeah.
And that definitely helps when there's no contact out there. But yeah, Tyjae Spears, and everyone has been big fans of his performance this Senior Bowl. So let's see if he can continue it, and see what happens when the pads are on, but when the kid gloves come off, I guess, where they actually start hitting each other. Yeah.
Chris Rodriguez, we didn't get to talk to him, but I know in an interview with a friend of ours, he did say that he played the season with a
PCL issue.
Yes, thank you. PCL issue. So I don't know. Everyone's always hurt type of thing, but not much to say. Again, running backs didn't get to say much. Didn't see much. It's 11v11s. People are trying to get hurt.
So. He's a power back, and what are your power backs supposed to do? I know Roshan broke his finger, but
yeah. Did you want to talk about Julius Brents, the K-State?
Yeah, so he got beat a little bit by Mingo today. That was a big on big matchup. But he measured in much larger than I think I expected. He didn't look that large. He's had a little bit of struggles here and there, but he's also had very good plays as well. He's just long. And so I'd like to see him hit. Like he can hit. He showed that at Kansas State, and so I think that's where he'll really shine, when he starts hitting hard.
Darius Rush looked great today. We talked about him last week here. South Carolina corner. I assumed, he's a CB2 at best. We all like Cam Smith. Cam Smith, a great corner. So we didn't really expect Darius Smith to look as good as he did today. I mean, not only is he powerful and physical, the way we're talking about these other corners here, but he doesn't have an issue keeping up either with the smaller, shiftier guys. You have anything else to say about Darius Rush?
Yeah, so we thought he was a zone coverage guy, right?
Yep, zone coverage.
We thought he was a zone coverage guy, and suddenly he's playing man out here, and he's looking great. I was impressed. He's playing physical, but not too physical. He wasn't like mauling receivers like Jamie Robinson was, but Darius Rush looked good, and I was impressed. I think I talked to a couple other folks today. They were very impressed with him as well. And so maybe this is one of those cases where he gets to really shine now that Cam Smith is out of the picture. And so, he has more opportunities to do the things that he's good at. Like we said, he's big, he's long, and he's physical right at the catch point, but, not necessarily, he's influencing routes without being too physical during the route. So, I think there's something to be said there. Yeah.
He looks bigger than his listed size too. He's listed at 196 for pounds. I thought he looked more like 210. He's got big arms.
He's big, and he's not too thick in his lower half, which sometimes slows down corners actually at the end of the day. So I think he's built well, and so the weight might be just in the right places. Just at this moment, I think our CB 1 and 2 probably Jay Ward and Darius Rush. Yeah, they both had great days today for sure. Yeah.
And on this team. Let's get into what do you want to get down to? Isaiah Land looked good today.
Isaiah Land was a great interview. Let me tell you that.
Yeah.
From FAMU, I am a former resident of Tallahassee, so FAMU rise up.
His agent was on standby right next to him the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. But like a truly passionate guy. Like he was explaining, his fundamentals. We weren't really sure what his role was because he's listed as a linebacker. Some people list him as an edge.
He enjoys coverage.
Yeah, he's like, I enjoy coverage, but they're putting me at jack this week, and we were like, okay, that sounds good. Like, he's just like, I just want to get on the football field no matter what. He seems somewhat really passionate about football, and he's explaining all these things. And so I'm all aboard that. I was aboard the Isaiah Land train before, but FAMU rise up. They showed out a little bit against UNC earlier this year as well, and so I think without Isaiah Land, I believe in that game. So I like Land a lot, and especially after talking to him today, I'm gonna go and try to watch more of his tape.
After practice too, we got to talk to Derek Hall, Auburn linebacker.
Edge.
Excuse me, Edge. He lined up against Darnell Wright, like versus 11v11s here, which is just two top tier talents going at it. He kind of beat Darnell Wright a few times, and I was kind of impressed with him, honestly.
In Wright's defense, as someone who's a big fan of Darnell Wright, they were playing on the opposite side that they would have played. Both Derek Hall's usually a right end.
Yeah.
In Auburn, and Darnell Wright is usually a left tackle. So they would have faced off if they had played each other this season. They would have faced off on the other side of the field. Today, Darnell Wright was at right tackle, and Derek Hall was at left guard, and so left end, and so. they faced off on the opposite end. It's usually a little bit easier for defenders to switch sides on that. So I will give him that. But Derek Hall was a really interesting guy. I shook hands with him and my hand disappeared inside his. It was crazy.
Dude
and he was in the backfield every play. Just every play he was in the backfield.
Yeah.
And it was actually
three
crazy.
in a row.
Yeah.
3 in a row he was in the backfield.
In full team as well as in individual one-on-ones as well. He was just a menace today.
We saw John Michael Smith, the Minnesota center. He was getting in the second level too. I know we talked about the Troy guy getting up there.
He was popping people.
John Michael, I think I saw him like 15, 20 yards downfield blocking for a play.
It wasn't just blocking. He was pop. You could hear the helmet pop.
He was moving. He was
absolutely. Steve Avila, we got the privilege to talk to him today. He's just someone that I would want to hang out with.
He's the one guy you want to go to the bar with.
He was just a happy guy, and he's just super positive. We brought up the championship game, and he took it in stride and just absolutely answered that, knocked that question out of the park. Just a really genuine guy, and he talked about his deficiencies and such, and I really respect that. And he was just a very good conversation, just someone you want to talk to, even outside of football.
The tight end group, Luke Musgrave was definitely a target for pass catching for the 11v11s. I think he made some. I know he made a highlight grab for Max Duggan, that's for sure. I want to say out of all the tight ends, he was probably looked to the most for passing.
Yeah. The tight Will Mallory, many people I talked to said they need to go back and watch more of his tape. I know a lot of C2C folks have said maybe his lack of usage might have been a little bit on the quarterback situation, a little bit on Gaddis, and so I think I'll probably take another peek as well because he was a fairly productive. I don't know how his blocking was necessarily; it was a little in and out. And then, speaking of blocking, Cameron Latu. Yeah, I know you want to talk about him.
No, I don't want to talk about his blocking. It was non-existent. But he did get some pass catching in as well, though. I do want to talk about, and I lost his name now, the fullback for Oklahoma, Braden Willis. Braden Willis.
He's a tight end.
Is practicing with the tight ends, listed as a fullback here. So I just thought that was worth noting here. I think he was also invited as a fullback as well, but he is playing with the tight ends. So it's cool seeing him out there.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any school that finds their expertise in converting 5-star quarterbacks to tight ends, it's Oklahoma, courtesy of Blake Bell and now Braden Willis. But he's been practicing well. He's been getting a little bit of attention. So definitely good. To switch gears a little bit, Dylan Horton was kind of all over the place as well. Interior defensive line tends to show out at the Senior Bowl, and Dylan Horton, who granted got a little bit run over in the championship game, he's been showing some stuff today.
That kind of wraps it up with our player breakdown. You got anybody else you think we missed? You want to go back to it all?
No, that's okay. I will say thanks for everyone who stuck around. If you made it this far, we've been asking prospects, so we think we should ask you guys too. Comment below what your hype up song is to hype you up before practice or whatever big things may come up in your life. My song is "Can't Stop" by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't know. I don't know if you have your hype song.
I'm trying to show Barnabas music from the last decade, so bear with me. I don't really have a hype song. It's just whatever's on. It's fine.
Michael, what was on your huddle tape?
It was kicker tape. I was busy rainbowing the ball over my head and punting it. But anyway, guys, that wraps it up for today. Again, join us at the same time tomorrow. We'll go over our notes. We'll be 3 days into the Senior Bowl, so we'll see a little bit more of what the pattern is as far as play goes for these guys.
Yeah, and keep your eye out for interviews. Like I said, we talked to a bunch of players today, and that was really a good experience. We'll try to talk to a few more tomorrow and maybe the day after as well.
Got to talk to 10 guys at breakfast this morning. I think we had 3 on the field today. Yesterday we had about, I want to say 3 or 4 as well. Yeah. But I'm really enjoying talking to these guys, and I almost hate talking to them because I honestly want to bump them up the rankings. Like, you just kind of fall in love talking to them. You're like, man, this guy's a nice guy. I can't do this to him.
Yeah, so we definitely will keep everyone updated on who's playing really well and who we're just like excited to learn more about, and who surprised us. And so stay tuned for that. Obviously, the both of us, you can find both of us on Twitter. You can find me at PKJBLee. You can find Mike at FF_Dirty Mike.
That's right.
And we'll be live tweeting and probably sending out clips as much as possible as the mobile reception allows for.
I will be tweeting a lot more clips shortly after this broadcast. I think I tweeted out like only 4 today compared to like I felt like 20 yesterday. But I'll be sending out a lot of clips today.
Yeah, and so we'll catch you guys tomorrow. And C2C Nation, let's ride.